What did I tell you? See? My phone's ringing.
It's kind of a nice ring.
Yeah, well, it's my son calling, of course.
Soothing.
I turned it off. Stop bothering me. Give me a second. We'll edit this out. We're editing this out. This part's gone.
This is part of the blooper reel.
Yeah, the blooper reel.
At
Yes,
the end of the season.
we've been promising ourselves that we'll have a blooper reel. So, hang up. Thank you. When we thought of this idea, the idea was that it was going to be more like Maury, and I was going to turn to Kendra every week and go, "You are the mother," but she tends to know that she already is the mother. So our next idea was to have an interview show. So today's interview is with Lisa Barrow. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Barrow, formerly of MotorWeek and of Stellantis, which you might know as Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Fiat, Mopar, and Alfa Romeo.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot to remember. Right?
It was a lot to remember, to learn.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long ago we met, but it was probably at the New York Auto Show or the Detroit Auto Show, probably late 90s.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I started with MotorWeek in 1989. 89 to 98. 89 to 98.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
like 10 years.
Yeah.
If my math is right, please.
So, so the story I was told was that John Davis begged you to be on the show. John Davis is the host of MotorWeek, which is still on after 43 years now.
No, actually, you're probably right, because he's been with Maryland Public Television for 50 years.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, he just
John's a
celebrated.
fantastic
Wow,
guy, and
that's
he
amazing.
hosts the show
He's awesome.
MotorWeek, and Lisa was on the show, and I was told he begged you to be on the show.
His story is that he went out into the parking lot, and he walked the parking lot to see if anybody had a cool car. And he stumbled upon a red RX-7, 1985. And he's like, I wonder who owns that car. I did. So that he claims that that's why he hired me, because of my car.
When you're doing a car show like that, that's a good way to pick it.
Yeah,
to find somebody who's
But
actually
there were
a
a few
car
other
person.
things. There's a few other things he had to teach me.
So tell us about your background. Where did you get your car mojo?
So, it really started with my grandfather. Well, my grandfather and my great uncle. They owned Barrow Brothers Rambler. Well, it was a Nash Rambler dealership in Oak Park, Illinois.
Oh,
And so, I think I mentioned to you, it's like cars are in my blood. But I can remember as a kid that, a new Rambler would show up in the driveway. So, my dad had connections. I was never sure if he got it for free or if he had to actually pay for it. But anyway, so that's how it started.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
and I even did a little search online, and I found old pictures of the dealership.
Oh, wow.
Some guy collects old dealership pics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I found a really good one.
There's somebody out there collecting something.
Yeah.
For everything.
We have
really
a
cool,
museum
though.
full of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So it's great.
Oh, wow. Is that building still around, do you know?
I don't think, well, it's not in, it wouldn't have been in,
Not
but I
anymore,
somehow
but-
I think it's
Cool.
been torn down.
Oh,
possibly.
that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like old car dealerships because there was one near my hometown, and we were just there a few weeks ago. And the dealership was, and it's not there anymore because it was an apartment for a while and stuff. But it had this awning where you would park the cars underneath it. You could see it was one time a car dealership, but it's a vacant lot now. I'm like, such a loss to architectural history.
Yeah, and even a lot of them were neon signs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
those
Yeah.
are,
Oh, yeah.
LA has a museum devoted to neon signs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're collectible.
Philly
definitely.
used to.
Oh yeah.
I think it just.
somebody probably bought it.
And when you watch antiques or the guys who buy all the antiques, and they've come to Boyertown
yeah.
a couple times.
Yeah.
When
It is the Antique Roadshow.
no, the other one
Oh, the
is
other one. Whatever.
When were they buy this?
they buy this stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
they always buy signs, and they've driven up the prices of all those signs, neon or not. And they and we have an experience now because we have one of the signs in the museum that I was there when they bought it at the auction, and it went for an ungodly number.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, it's a tin sign.
Yeah.
How can it be worth that much? But
All that stuff.
But they
Really
are.
popular now.
so tell me about the A-Team. Apparently you and Susan at MotorWeek,
Yes.
Susan Childress?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was told
She-
you guys were the A-Team at MotorWeek.
Wow. I didn't tell you that.
No, you didn't.
Well, John, for the first year, he watched us together, like a hawk, and he wanted to see everything. And then he's like, and then he used to say, "I give you enough rope to hang yourself, and you haven't done it yet." So, after a year, he let us go, and we would always let him know what stories we wanted to do, and we'd present him with the list, and he's like, "Looks good," and yeah, we traveled all over the U.S., and then we went all over the world with various car companies covering stories, and it was so much fun. And we found an old tape storage room in the basement
Oh, wow.
of the TV station.
Yeah.
And we're like, no one's using this. They're storing junk in there. So we were like, we talked to different people, and we cleared that thing out, and that became our studio as well as our offices. So we had our own little, kingdom there.
Was that the
tiny
news
place to-
studio?
Yeah.
Where you did the news from?
Exactly. So that was in the corner. I mean,
Yeah.
it made perfect sense.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there was plenty of room. And and then we had our offices on the other side, which you wouldn't want to have seen my office. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Did you like case down these stories on your own? Did car companies like reach out to MotorWeek and say, "We got this story we want you to cover"? Or
It actually was a team effort because Susan and I found a lot of our own stories. Sometimes John would have story ideas for us, and our cameraman, Pat Stallionis, he was great. I mean, he read every kind of car magazine known to man. He was always looking at everything, on TV shows, everything. And then he just had ideas in his head, and he's like, "Hey, what would you think of doing this?" And he came in one day and he's like, "You know what? I think we should do it. I think you should test drive an M1A2 Abrams main battle tank, 70 tons." And I'm like, "Oh, that's nice, Pat." So sure enough, I called Aberdeen, the Army at Aberdeen, and they're like, "Yeah, come on."
Oh my gosh.
And they made a jumpsuit for me with my name on it, and they got me in the tank, and I was shocked that it was so simplistic in terms of driving it, because it has these like a little pull bar that you change gears, and then it's got motorcycle grips. And I went on a dirt test track and was so slow, which was bad because it's not stable. So then I was like, okay, I get it. I got to go faster. And once I picked up speed, and then I'm like zooming around the track. That was fun.
So, among the people you met along the way, especially at MotorWeek and such, Denise McCluggage,
Oh, yeah.
Parnelli Jones.
Yes.
Tell me about Valentino Balboni.
I loved him. So we were doing 4 stories over in Europe, and one of them was with Lamborghini. We went to the factory, and it's not like any it's not like a regular factory that we think of where there's a lot of machinery and things. It's all it's done by hand, and so we toured the factory and shot a lot of footage, and then
This was in the early 90s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're good. Keeping me honest. So then, Valentino, he's like, they don't have a test track, so they test on the roads around the factories in Santa Agata, and they test on the real roads. So he's like, "You want to go for a ride?" I'm like, "Of course." Wait, it was a Lamborghini. I just remember him saying Lamborghini Jota, Jota.
Oh, right, yes.
So,
that's an old one, yeah.
So we got in that car. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever had a bigger grin on my face It was great, and we're laughing, and he's telling me stories about the time he was testing on the roads, and a cat got stuck under his feet with the pedals, and he's like, and the cat is going in and out, and I'm going like I'm gonna crash, and so it's like he was hilarious. So he was, he was.
But he was the test driver for.
Oh
Liberty.
yeah,
Wow.
lead test driver, and here I am. I was like, it was kind of surreal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm driving around with him, and like he's awesome.
Yeah, this was years before the big companies came in and
Yes.
took it over.
Oh yeah. I mean, I still have a little because they're all the leather work and things for the interiors. They're all these people. Well, not all these people. Just not that many people in the factory, and they're hand cutting everything. And at the end, before we left, one of the guys came running over to me, and he goes, "Here, a gift for you." And it was 3 of the Lamborghini logos that go in each seat.
Oh wow.
I still have
Of
it.
course.
I loved
That's
it.
a
He was
keepsake.
just like, here.
Oh yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
They were still doing things by hand in the early 90s. That's really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they only built. I think they built less than 1,000 cars a
Yeah.
year.
So,
Yeah, it could be
and I
many.
think, that was part of it being so special. I think,
sure, sure.
And that was that was a great group of people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but in the car business, you meet so many great people.
Yeah.
I'm spoiled.
Well, tell the story about Denise McCluggage.
Oh, okay. So early on, the very first story that I ever worked on out of the country was the Berta Benz rally.
Who's Berta Benz?
Well, Berta Benz is the wife of Carl Benz, Mercedes-Benz. So Berta Benz was tired of hearing her husband talk about, this car thing's never going to take off, blah, 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 blah. So she got her 2 sons together, and in the middle of the night, they stole the car he was working on, and they thought, we're going to drive this thing and show him that it can actually be done.
Oh my gosh.
And when I went over there, it was a recreation of the first long-distance trip in a car by Berta Benz and her, her sons.
Long
And it
distance
was,
being how far?
Well, it was Mannheim to Pforzheim, and I don't remember the length of it.
But today's standards, it's not very long.
Oh, not very long. Yeah. If you look at it, it's not that long.
Yeah.
But they took cars out of the museum, and we were in a 1912. I can still hear the engineer. 1912 Mercedes-Benz Kadenwagen. And he was the cutest thing. And he ran behind us in case we, in case we
He
just,
ran behind.
But Denise, I got in there to shift it. And you're shifting over here, and the shifter is outside of the car, and it really was awkward for your arm. And Denise got behind the wheel, and Denise is a winner, and so I didn't even have to worry about shifting because I knew Denise was gonna be in there the whole time, and it was fun. We had a great time. We really did.
If you don't know who Denise McCluggage is, look her up. Read some of her stuff. She was, as we said, a force to be reckoned with.
Truly, and. Racing career. Actually,
Did you win
a
the
big
Berta
tennis.
Benz?
No, we didn't win, but we had fun.
That's what matters.
We have great memories.
That's why you do it,
Yeah,
right? Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be with
experience.
with her,
I know. Well, then later I went to. She moved to Santa Fe, and I went there and spent time with her in Santa Fe, and that was a lot of fun. Her house. Memorabilia over every inch of her house. That just you couldn't walk. It took you forever to get to the house just looking at all the things she had.
It's like
from
its own
the car
museum.
world. Truly.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people, but I met Denise I think twice, and it was just in passing, enough to say hi, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And she was very, very friendly, but always carried her little bag with her at the car shows. She always had to drag the bag with her, but she was only about. I don't think she was quite 5 foot tall. But everybody knew her. Everybody knew her when she walked by, and she always had this bag. She was trolling behind her. It was amazing.
She was out. She had a Corvette. I think it was a Corvette press car. I was telling you about this, and she was out on the roadways flying, and she ends up getting. She gets pulled over by a police officer, and when he comes to the window. He's like, "Oh, sorry, ma'am. I was looking for somebody that was, speeding." And she's like, "Oh, he went that way." It was her.
She raced, didn't she?
Oh,
did
yeah,
race.
yeah.
No,
But you know what?
she was just not just a journalist playing the part. She was actually the real deal.
The real deal, and because women, really a man's sport back then. It was she would have if she had been given access to a lot more things. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
she had a great career.
So speaking of these women in the industry, how early on were you? Do you think among women in journalism and automotive journalism?
Well, I remember in the beginning it was me. Jean Lindemood from Automobile Magazine fame, and Denise. And and oftentimes I'd go on a new car launch program, and I'd be the only woman. And there just weren't any. And I remember John Davis telling me in the beginning, he's like, all right, you're going on your first program. I want you to sit in the back. I want you to pay attention, listen to everything, and don't ask any questions yet. And I was like, he was right, because I was still learning, and that was good advice.
Yeah. No, I've always been a car person.
Yeah.
And I've always known quite a bit about it. So,
Right.
but when I went on my first trips, it was shut up, sit in the back, wait your turn. I understood that.
Be seen and not heard.
Yeah. No, I don't make waves right away. But 30 years on, I can actually do something now. But at the beginning, I was just like, sit in the back. Let them do all this stuff, and don't correct them when they're wrong.
I remember being on a camping trip. It was like some singles camping trip, obviously a long time ago. But I just, all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm hanging out with all the guys talking cars, and all the women are on the other side of the room, and I'm like, but I had new press cars all the time. I was in and out of everything, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's pretty good odds.
The experiences you get when you're in those groups.
Yeah.
I've told stories about sitting around with people who were professional journalists, but then you find them as people, and you bridge that gap between what they know automotively and what they like outside of that world, and come up with the little stories that you come up with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So you had a trip with Land Rover that was a good story?
I did. I ended up doing a lot of stories with Land Rover, but oh my gosh, and they were all incredible. But there was one to Mongolia that was like, now car companies take people to Mongolia, but back then.
That's really neat.
And just the city itself, it's not like it is now. And we did, it was, Bill Baker was like, PR guy extraordinaire with Land Rover. And he divvied this up into two groups. And we did the first south to north crossing of Mongolia in a Land Rover. And then the second group did the first north to south. And, it was fascinating, and it was a great way to test the car, and we got great videos. But being there, nobody spoke the language, and but there was a lot of great terrain to take the vehicles over, so it ended up being a really good story.
What?
Yeah. He was a story idea man. I went all over the world with that company. It was great. It truly was. It's like they had a nice bankroll.
So you went along on this as like a member of the media, essentially, to cover it? Or?
My segment on the show, or I should say ours, because Susan and I worked on it together, was the FYI segment. And it went back and forth between consumer topics, safety topics, and then it kind of morphed into this little, these adventure things. And we worked together on them. Sometimes she would produce one story and I would produce the other. So, but we came up with a story list of what we wanted to do, and we would go to John Davis, and he'd be like, yes, no, yes, no. There was one, I'm trying to think, there was one that I kept tossing in there, and I don't think he ever went for it. So, yeah, it was good.
So, when you left MotorWeek, where did you transition to?
Well, so I ended up, I'm trying to think. It involved Mike Galen, because I was talking to Mike Galen. Okay, it's coming back to me. Land Rover approached me. Of course, Land Rover approached me about considering a PR job with Land Rover, and I'm like, let me think about that. And I called Mike Galen from Kermish Galen Public Relations up in New York, and because Mike,
you said this was around 98.
Yeah, that would have been 98. And I said, "Hey, Mike, I just got a call from Land Rover, and they're talking about offering me this job, or would I like this job? Would I be interested in this job?" And he said, "No, don't take that. It's not good enough for you." And then he said, "Let me call you back." Well, he had to fill somebody in the Chrysler job out in Beverly Hills, California, to handle the West Coast. So he calls me back after he does makes the calls, and then he calls me back and he's like, What would you think about handling Chrysler on the West Coast, and your office would be 1 block west of Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills?" And I'm like, "Let's talk." So that's what I did. It was great.
Oh, wow.
Well, it was great to see both sides of the business, the PR side as well as the journalist side, and it actually made it easier for me to do the PR job, because I knew what a journalist needs for a story.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it actually
What
worked.
will get their attention
Right.
to give you the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and both sides of the business, I mean, different, but really, really enjoyable. And I learned so much. And in the office, Beverly Zeiss was the manager. There were 3 of us in there. And Beverly worked on a bunch of different clients, and then I was strictly Chrysler. But she showed me everything. Everything. When I think I mentioned to you about the hydrogen fuel cell. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mercedes wanted to take their hydrogen fuel cell, and
This is when Chrysler and Mercedes were the same company.
right. So Daimler Chrysler days.
Right.
And so they wanted to showcase the fuel cell vehicles to journalists in Sacramento, and there was a government tie-in as well. So the engineers, there was like 8 of them. They meet me in Beverly Hills first, in Los Angeles. And so all of a sudden I was in charge of these 8 engineers, and people couldn't really speak English that well, and they want to see all the sites. I'm taking them to all the sites and everything. I'm like, okay, you've seen Grauman's Chinese Theater, you've seen this, you've seen that. Now it's time to go back to your hotel. Well, they follow me home. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I have to call Beverly and say, you got to help me get them to the hotel. So, because I don't know, I'm not used to the area. And so, she guides me, and they're following me. I'm like, don't come back to my house.
Please go to your hotel.
I ended up meeting them in Sacramento and for the fuel cell event for the media. And that was it was one crazy thing after another. But I remember the event itself went off great, and then the journalists, all the Daimler people, they disappeared. And a guy from the hotel we were staying, he showed up, and he's like, "Do you need help?" I'm like, "I need help. All the chairs, all the trash." And he helped me. He helped me clean up, and it is like, thank heaven for you. But that turned out to be really good. And then I met up with the engineers before they flew back, and we're having a nice goodbye lunch. And one of them said to me, he was at the head of the table, and he said, "Lisa, we have a gift for you." And that's exactly how he said it. It's in my brain forever. And I'm thinking, how nice. They know how hard I worked. And then he told me what it was. Well, from the hydrogen program, there were 2 big hydrogen tanks left over that had to be returned to the hydrogen station. So they loaded them in the back of my Grand Cherokee, and I have to show them back to the hotel in Sunset Boulevard, and I'm going up, it's a very curvy road, and you can hear the hydrogen clanking. I'm like, "Hey, Mom," I call my mom, "Guess what I'm doing?" So anyway, yeah, that was fun, and I safely returned them to the hydrogen site.
Oh, good.
You've got
good.
the Hindenburg on the road.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm thinking.
So your adventures don't just involve work. You've ridden motorcycles across the world.
I have.
I always get jealous whenever you post your pictures online, and I see you and your friends are somewhere, anywhere. It doesn't matter where it is. I'm like, oh, wow, that looks so cool to be there.
Well, it was funny because the first trip was thanks to my husband, because he saw that lowest prices in the motorcycling business. She's written a couple of books, and I had. When he kept telling me, you have to read this book, Lois on the Loose. And I'm like, whatever. And he went off for the weekend, and I was like, I'm going to read this book. And I started reading it. I couldn't put it down. It was so great. So then he gets an email saying Lois Price is leading a group of women to Brazil on motorcycles. He's like,
You need to
come to the top of the stairs. This has you written all over it. So I got to ride with her. It was great. Yeah, so that was sort of my... I mean, he basically taught me the ropes for riding, and we've been on a lot of trips together.
Yeah.
But
I've seen you in like Eastern Europe, and
we're going to be riding in Morocco coming up.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
You've touched every biosphere here.
When I grow up,
the
I want to be
jungle,
you.
We've got the desert.
Yeah.
I know. There's some good
The
ones.
more continental weather.
Yeah. So, but I hear you're returning to MotorWeek.
I went down there to do some little. So it's John's 50th anniversary with public television, and because he was with Wall Street Kaiser beforehand.
That's just astounding. A 50-year career is just astounding.
And he was always running the show, and they did a big anniversary for him. So they asked me to come down and do a little, tribute to him on camera, and they showed it that night. So yeah. No, it's fun. I pop in there every once in a while. It's good to see him.
Yeah. No, he's great, and he's bigger than life because he's a large man. But when you walk into the room and he's there, he walks in, you're like, I know that man. I've seen him on television.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was asking him questions about you, and he said, we have to catch up. I'm like, yeah, we do have to catch up because just sitting down talking to him and talking about things that happened, just like this, talking about things that happened to him and in the industry and stuff, and you get almost like a childlike enjoyment from him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he'll just start. You can look on his face that he's not a professional; he's a person, and he's telling you the story as a fan.
Yeah.
It's great.
And anytime, I can remember being at a big event out in Vegas, and there was a long table, and everybody's sitting around, dinner, drinks, kind of a thing, and all of a sudden, one gentleman says, "Hey, John, what do you think of, insert car here?" And all the chatter just stops, and everyone turns to John, and they want to know what he thinks about that car. I mean, the man was like, a god in the auto business. It was, yeah.
Yeah, I still watch the old episodes online.
Yeah.
Like, watch for the news with you coming on and doing the news or the FYI thing.
Do you see the comments that people put in the?
I rarely read the comments. No,
they're entertaining.
Don't read the comments.
No, I mean there's some of them that are like me and my big '80s hair.
You got to put it in the place of the time and the place,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you were the only one walking around
Exactly,
like that.
exactly.
It's
Pull
fine.
out my high school yearbook and you'll see the same thing. Trust me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't scare me. Sam knows my affinity for different kinds of fashion moments.
Yes. No. We've reminisced about the 80s and 70s and 90s and
70s.
yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one's best or worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we always come across the worst, and you're like, oh, remember this? And
Oh yeah.
Wasn't it great? Yeah. So did you go out there in the working world with the intention of specifically doing automotive journalism, or did journalism and because of your own background with your grandfather and everything, it just kind of became a natural, this automotive journalism is where it's at for me? Or
My dad watched MotorWeek from when it was just a local show.
okay,
So I saw MotorWeek on TV a lot because it was
You're right.
it was like every Saturday morning
it
MotorWeek
was
was on
tradition,
TV.
ritual,
And so I was very aware of it. And then when the job opened up, I was like, John says it's, because he said, who has the RX-7, but I had all kinds of story ideas, and I would drop them on his desk. Story idea, here's my resume, story idea.
So you were already working for Maryland
Yeah,
Public?
I was working in the engineering side of the
okay.
business where, I was putting all the programming on the air.
Okay.
Oh, right.
And so he, and everybody had to walk by where I was because engineering was like a big glass window. And
They need you. They all need you. Yeah.
and I thought, I wanted to learn how to put stories together. And I one of the other producers I knew who worked on this farm show, this agricultural show, I said, hey, I got an idea for a story for your show. It's Frank Parsons' Mink and Ferret Farm. And he said, can I do a story for you on that? And he's like, sure. He never asked me if I knew how to put a story together. And I was like, I'm going to figure it out. So I went, I went down to Eastern Shore and covered, Frank Parsons' farm. And then I came back to the edit suite and I kind of figured out how to put it together. But then I showed it to a friend of mine and he's like, yeah, but you don't have any presence under it. You need audio. You need to have the audio up, so I'm like, how do I do that? So it was fun. In the weekends I'd go in there and just do all my stories on the weekends and pick music, hours trying to find the right music, and it was a great place to work.
That
it really
sounds
was.
great.
It's just and so many people that would help you if you needed help.
Oh yeah.
It was good, and a lot of car people.
Oh wow, that's as a kid growing up watching any television that had cars on it.
Yeah.
And I watched. You were in Maryland, so John Harder from
Yes.
Channel 7.
Absolutely.
I waited. I only watched the news to
For
see if
John.
he had his segment, and it would come up maybe once a week, usually on a Friday or something like that. And it was a 5-minute segment of him testing a car, and I was so disappointed when I knew which block it was in. And when that block passed and he wasn't on, I gotta wait another week to see if he's gonna be on next week. And I ran into him at the New York Auto Show, and it was, I think I remember it was being like a Subaru introduction. It was packed.
Yeah.
And I'm literally looking at everybody's feet so I don't step on anyone's feet. And so I almost run into a person. I look up and I see John Harder across his name. And I'm like, oh my God. I watched you since I was a kid, and he goes, "Oh, I thought my mom was the only one who watches." He was so self-deprecating. He was such a nice guy, and but yeah, he was like the first person, and then
Great
John
guy.
Davis and you, and watching all that, it was the only thing on television that had cars, and that's why I had.
My dad was watching it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's unlike today where you
It's
can't.
like there's whole channels.
Yeah, there are channels of it
for
now.
car
but-
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And now I even wait for that one block where John comes on and does MotorWeek again, so I can reminisce about watching him 43 years ago.
I remember he was funny because we weren't. You had to sign a loan. You got press cars in, and we had the Prowler in, and so I drove it home to show my dad, but I wouldn't let him drive it because he's not he's not approved.
Sure.
And the next day I told John, I went down there to show my dad the Prowler, and he's like, well, what did he think when he drove it? And I'm like, well, I didn't let him drive it because we were not supposed to let other people drive. He's like, you didn't let your father drive the Prowler? You get in the car right now and go down there and you let him drive it. Oh, I felt so bad.
Yeah, I know that feeling too because my father passed away before I started getting press cars, but I just would have loved to have been able to do that because the first press car I brought home, my mom was visiting and I had a BMW 750 IL, the most expensive BMW they had, and I pulled up there and my mom sits in the car, she looks around, she's really in awe of the car, and she was in the middle of selling her house, and she's like, so how much is this? I said, you're not going to get this much money for your house. And she didn't. It was like a $90,000 car, and she sold her house for $80,000.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember being on the actual national media launch for the Plymouth Prowler, and our hotel was on Sunset Boulevard. And after we did the drive program, we went back to the hotel. We still needed to get shots of the car on Sunset Boulevard. And we just were having a heck of a time. It's not working. And then I had to keep going around the hotel. And then cops pulled me over. Cops love cars. They go, hey, can we look at your car? I'm like, you can look at the car if you follow me around and you put the lights on and pull me over on Sunset Boulevard. I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. So I didn't, we didn't have cell phones, so I couldn't tell Pat, videographer, that we're coming around, but he was on it because we came around the bend, and I'm like, I think I'm flashing my lights, whatever, and that was the closing shot of that road test segment.
Oh my God.
Because it was perfect. It was so good.
Yeah. I've had hundreds of press cars, but very few of them ever attracted the attention of anyone else.
Yeah.
The Prowler was one of them.
Oh
Definitely
my
one of them.
gosh. I had, when we finally got it as a test car, I had it for the weekend, and all night long I could hear engines idling outside because people wanted to look at it. And they were like, everybody's in my yard. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was so crazy that I took it back on Sunday afternoon because I'm like, I can't do it again. I can't.
Yeah, it made waves no matter where it went.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. And especially when it was brand new on the street and no one saw one. Yeah, that was.
And the fact that they did it, they doodled, like Bob Lutz doodled it on a napkin in a bar or something, and say, we should do this. Shows it to Tom Gale or whatever. It was a different time in the industry because it was probably the end of an era. You couldn't do that again. Yeah. Actually, we might be able to with electric vehicles coming forward because there's less restraint on the design. You might be able to do it again, but we're going to need more of them on the street first. And so it'll be another 10 years before we start seeing the modern Prowler or something. Yeah. Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah, that would be great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially if it could have a trunk.
Oh, yeah. I was pretty good at stuffing things in, like the little tiny space that you had.
Oh, the little tiny. We had a neighborhood party when I had that as a press car. And I took my neighbor, I'm like, we're going to go get a case of beer. And so we go to get a case of beer, and the trunk is not large enough for a case of beer.
Oh my gosh.
He had to ride home with it on his lap because the trunk was not big enough for a case of beer.
This would not work for my life.
Trust me, you're not driving a Prowler daily. You are not driving a Prowler daily.
No. But when you're driving it, you have this grin from ear to ear.
Yeah.
Just.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we're pulling into a gas station and watching people come over to talk to you. Wow, what do you think of it? And it was one of the few cars that did that.
Well, I can't fit a case of beer in it, so.
So here's the downside of
it. The first Viper, that's the one car I remember where I really got sweaty palms. When I got in it and, it's just me and the car, I'm like, oh my God. But it was a blast.
Oh, yeah. My son is looking for a car for us to autocross, to race. Oh. And he's like, oh, how about a Viper? I'm like, okay, 2 strikes against a Viper. First of all, I don't have that kind of money. He goes, well, they're cheap used. I'm like, cheap to a 19-year-old and cheap to an adult, two different things. And the second thing is, it's not a great track car.
Yeah, for autocross,
it's a big car. It's just a big, heavy car. I enjoy driving it, but it's still, I'm not sure I would own one.
Yeah, I think, not especially not for, you wouldn't want it for an autocross.
No. It's just a big car.
Yeah. Oh, it was fun. Oh my gosh.
Well, do you have any other last stories you want to tell us?
I could end on a funny story. Well, funny to me. Early on, when when I was going to turn 16, my older brother was going to teach me how to shift a manual transmission. Anyway, that didn't go well, and so I was like, whatever, he probably ended up like fighting or arguing. I don't know what happened, but anyway, my first car, as I mentioned earlier, was a 1985 Mazda RX-7. So it's ready for me to pick up, and I would say the dealership was probably maybe 8 miles to the TV station. So I go to get it, and I kind of know how to shift. I mean, I thought I understood what you had to do. But here I am in this brand new car, and I get out, and I'm like, and the road is like, flat, straight. And I'm like, okay, I got this. I got it. And then it's at like halfway through the drive back to the TV station is a hill. And the hill has a stoplight.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
And I never had to stop on that hill before. But the light turns red, and I'm like, I'm on a hill. Oh my gosh. And behind me is this dump truck that's right on my tail. I'm like, I can't even roll back. And I'm freaking out thinking, I can't roll back. What am I going to do? And I'm telling you, when the light turned red, I smoked those tires. I was giving it everything I had, and I turned the car sideways. And literally, it's all smoking. Everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. But you know what? When I got sideways on the hill, I could just go right up the hill. I happily went all the way to work without any other incident. But I can't start on a hill. It was really funny. That's when you kind of learn, when you let the clutch out a little bit, it'll stop, but still wasn't enough when the dump truck's right on it.
No,
Yeah,
It's added an automatic when you're on a hill, and the car behind you is like right there, and it's like, hello.
Yeah. But it was brand
personal
new.
space.
I wasn't letting anybody touch that car. I probably needed a new set of tires after that.
Yeah. How'd you go through new tires? You've only had it an hour.
Tires made it through a day. That's fine.
I had a traffic light.
Oh my gosh. I will never forget that.
Well, Lisa, thank you for joining us.
This was a blast.
Great.
Really,
so glad to
was
have
fun.
you.
to see you guys.
Yeah,
and,
so please come back and see us again on afternoons with Kendra and Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Next time it won't be Lisa, but hopefully we'll find someone else. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Lisa, for joining
absolutely
us.
loved it.